base of our folio. So we are going to, so I find my board, you're going to need 3 pieces of chipboard that are 5 inches by 7 1/8, one that is 1/2 inch by 7 1/8, and one that is 7/8 by 7 1/8. To wrap those, you need 3 pieces that are 7 inches by 9 1/8, one piece 2 1/2 by 9 1/8, and one piece 2 7/8 by 9 1/8. And then the inside reinforcement gusset hider thing cover, I can't even think what it's called, I'm just drawing a complete blank right now, is 3 by 7, and you'll need 2 of those. So let's get started here. Get that sitting in here. So I have the back prepped on all of these so that we can just get going here. So I'm going to put this on my scoreboard. This seems to work easiest to do this in this method. And then I just have a little 1-inch template that I put down. Let me get my backing off of my tape here. And all you do is just get this in here with your template, and that gives you a perfect 1-inch border all the way around. We do the same thing with our other spine piece. We're just going to put that template in there. I'm going to go ahead and get our backing off. And get that down in here. And again, we've got our perfect border. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the main pieces, for the front, back, inside, etc. You know what, one of these needs cut down. Let's set that aside for right now. Because it's going to be too long otherwise, and it's not going to close right. It just dawned on me. And that's okay. Better to figure it out now than when we're trying to put it together and it doesn't work. If you only knew how many times that has happened to me in filming tutorials, that I start to put something together and go, oh, this is wrong, and I have to start all over again. Happens more than I care to admit, but that's okay. Well, for crying out loud, if I can get the back off here. There we go. Nope. Come on. For crying out loud, this does not want to cooperate today. Okay, let's try down here. Ah, that corner wanted to work. Okay. Again, make sure everything's in here. Okay. For this third piece, this actually needs to be 4 7/8. So I'm going to take 1/8 of an inch off of this with my big cutter because it will do it. Yeah, see, seriously. And I'm going to take another 1/8 of an inch off of this one. Which truly that wouldn't matter so much, but just so that we're even and we're consistent. Okay, so one piece 4 7/8 by 7 1/8. The other two are both 5 by 7 1/8. Apologize for that. I should have thought that through when I was designing, but I did not do a prototype of this one, so that's normally how I would catch it when I do prototypes, but not everything gets a prototype, so all right. Put my templates away. I'm going to move the scoreboard, and we're going to grab the 1/4 inch score tape and a glue. So what we're going to do is we're going to come through here, and you're just going to fold it over. So you're going to use the chipboard, you're going to fold it over, and you're going to burnish. Okay? Same thing on the other side. And then again on the opposite. Okay, so then now we're going to come in here and we're going to cut out these corners. And then before we check the width on the corners, we're going to go ahead and get our 1/4 inch score tape out, and we're going to put that on the edges of the chipboard and the outside edge of the cardstock. We could do this before we cut those corners out, before we bend and everything. Well, no, not really before we bend, but before we cut the corners out. But I find it's just a little bit easier to do it after the fact. Okay. So now I'm going to bend this over. I'm going to make sure nothing's hanging out here. And we want to just ever so slightly miter that corner. So all you're going to do is put your scissors up against the edge of the chipboard, and then pivot in and cut. See how this is hanging out over the edge? We don't want it to do that, so you pivot in and cut. And then we're going to do the other side. Now, to wrap this, I'm going to run a little bit of glue right along that edge, and then I'm just going to put a little squiggle in here just to make sure it's good and stuck. And that was done. I should have pulled my tape backing off first, but that's okay. No harm. Alright, so then I'm going to take my bone folder, as well. Okay. I'm going to take my bone folder, I'm going to run it up along the edge of the spine, or the chipboard, and then just fold over and burnish down. And that goes on there just perfectly smooth. So before we get any further, let's get the backing off of the rest of these. Before I have, you know, that panic moment going, oh no, it's going to cover up my score tape backing. Okay, so again, run a line of glue there. Burnish that. Over we go. And burnish that down. You're going to do the same thing on the ends. Burnish that down. And I'm going to know which one is my slightly smaller one just because I have it written on here. You're going to want to mark the one that's slightly smaller because this is going to be the one that folds in and then folds in. Okay? So you want to know which one this is for sure. So I'm going to set that one to the side, and we're going to do the exact same thing on our other two cover pieces. So you're going to fold burnish, fold and burnish. Okay, and if you're going to put tape on before you cut those out, we're going to come around here. You're only going to put tape on the inside of your little fold lines there, like so. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and cut those corners out, clean up our edges, make sure they're not hanging over, and then glue everything down. Okay. This way and this way. Alright. I'm going to remove all of the backing this time instead of only part of it. Because it's going to go fast enough, it's not really going to matter that we've already got all of it off. Alright, so then again, I like to start with the longer side. Honestly, I don't think it matters. That's just personal preference. So line of glue, whoops, down the side. Come and burnish that down, and then over we go. Flip it around, same thing again. And again. One more time. And there's your second one. Move on to our third. We're going to do the same thing again. I like doing this tape first and then cutting. Okay, so we're going to cut our corners out. I do love this method of building the covers. It's to me, it seems so much faster. It's so much less, you know, strain on your hands. Because I know, you know, I mean, Tammy came up with this because she had some older ladies asking for something, because wrapping the other way sometimes with arthritis and whatnot can be kind of difficult. And Tammy came up with this method for that reason. And Lord knows I don't have arthritis or anything like that, but sometimes my hands do get cramped up when I'm, you know, in here working away, and, you know, that, you know, even though this method was developed, you know, for that reason, I just find it so much easier to do that. That's why I keep doing it. And two, for me anyway, when I would sit down, I would go, okay, I want my cover to be this size, and I want my spine to be this size, and I need to leave the, you know, 1/8 inch gusset in there, plus I need to leave 1 inch outside to wrap it. And I would sit and try to, you know, calculate everything, figure out how many, you know, how wide I needed to cut my cardstock, and then, you know, leaving an allowance in there to attach pieces together when it was, you know, more than like one piece, which almost every time it was. And, you know, either coming up short or too long or whatever, and it's just always kind of frustrated me. This is so much easier because you literally are, because you're doing it in pieces, you don't have to, you know, do all that calculating and hope you're getting it right when you're going to build your cover. I also think it's easier to get everything aligned top to bottom and whatnot and get it straighter, where I know I've had albums using the old method where my chipboard would just slide down like 1/16 of an inch as it went along, and you'd have an album that was just slightly off. Not off enough to tear it apart and redo it, but just enough that it would just irritate me beyond all reason. So, like I said, I am a huge fan of this method. I'm really glad she came up with it, and that's why I continue to do it. Okay, so for our 2 little spine pieces, do the same thing with this. And where this is a smaller piece of chipboard, this is maybe going to be a little bit more difficult than it would be otherwise. So on this one, we're not cutting out the square, we're cutting across. So you're going to go from this score line down here to this score line up here, so that you're taking off that corner. Okay. We're going to do this on both ends. Okay. And then we are going to get some tape on here. We're going to get some tape on here. I should have done it before we trimmed it, but that's okay. And another little piece on here. Again, should have done it before I trimmed it. I know when we first started doing this, we were doing it with just glue, and this honestly seems to work a little bit better to kind of use a combo. So, okay. Get our tape backing off of here. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to get that little bit of... Actually, we're going to run it a little bit underneath over there too. Okay, and then the same thing again. You're just going up and over, and then burnishing it down on each side. We're going to wipe off any extra glue that may have seeped out. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And on the next one, we'll tape it before we cut it. Because then it doesn't look so weird. And it makes more sense. So, all right, so glue down that score line. And then in the middle here. And the same thing again. We're going to push it up against the chipboard and then over. And then down and burnish on each side. Okay, there's our first spine. This one we're doing the same thing again, and like I said, this will feel really weird when you do this with as tiny as this little spine piece is, but I promise it's gonna work. Okay, so this time, before we cut, let's go ahead and run our score tape across the top. And since we're going to cut out part of that, we don't need to go all the way to the edge on the top one. And this one's tiny enough, I don't know that we really need it on the chipboard itself, but I'm just going to do it anyway, mostly out of habit. Okay. And then we're going to go fold mark to fold mark, cut that corner. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing we did before. Oops, let's not do that. Not that it'll spill everywhere, but you know, let's just not do that because I could totally see me putting my arm down on that and squirting glue everywhere. Sadly, that has happened to me before, not with this glue, but when I used to just use the Scotch quick dry doing like 3D SVG projects. Oh yeah, there were many glue mishaps over the years, sad to say. Okay, other side. And over. I will say this is the first time I have done a spine this narrow with this method, and it works great. Okay, so I'm going to set this to the side for just a minute. We're going to take our spine pieces and we're just going to kind of burnish on either side here and get this good and pushed down. Just kind of work that paper. And if you're using Artisan, I know somebody asked this on the live Tammy was doing last night on Country Craft Creations for the December Daily, which we just started this week, and it will be going the entire month of February. If burnishing on this cardstock makes any marks on it, and it does not. I know when I still used Michael's cardstock, when you'd get to burnishing, it would kind of cause like this little shiny patch anywhere you'd gone over it. The Teflon bone folder kind of helped, but it still would do it to a point, just not as badly as like with a plastic bone folder. But yeah, it was just kind of interesting. Somebody had asked that, and I really hadn't thought about it, I guess, since I switched to the Artisan cardstock. But it does not mark up when you burnish on it, which is awesome. Okay, so we got this folded over. We're going to miter these corners again on the top and bottom of our flap. Ow. I love these scissors, but they connect in right there, and I pinch my finger all the time with them. But they work so well, that's why I keep using them. All right, so assembly. So here's how this is going to go. Front, back piece that folds inside. Make sense? So our our half inch is going to go between the big one and the small one. The 7/8 is going to go between the two larger ones. Okay, I'm going to move those two to the side. We're going to start with this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here again with our 1/8 inch score tape, or I'm sorry, 1/4 inch score tape, not 8. And you're going to come in. You don't want to go all the way to the edge of the chipboard. You want to leave about 1/8 of an inch. Just because that way you're not going to see this when the book's closed. And we're going to do another one on the end. So, with this side, the unfinished side face down, and the unfinished side of this face down, this is how we're going to put these together. Okay? Okay. So, we're going to just put some glue in the middle part of this here just to make it that much stronger. And what you're going to do is you're going to come in so that you're up against the chipboard here. Okay? Make sure you're lined up top to bottom and then push it down. Okay? Burnish it down. Flip it over, burnish it on this side as well. And we're going to do the other side. We're going to do the other side the exact same way. But we're just going to line this all the way up against the chipboard. We don't need a gap because we're not wrapping it around the outside where you need that gap so it doesn't split. It's all on the inside. Okay? We're going to stop there. We're going to burnish all of this down. And then we're going to do our other side. And do the same thing on this one. Your score tape on the edge. And then go about 1/8 of an inch in from the chipboard on this piece. Do that on both sides. Okay. All right. So again, we're going to pull this up. We're going to get our glue, and then we are going to come in up against that spine and push it down. And then do the same thing with our small piece. All right, I turn that over. We're going to burnish both of those down. This side should be dry enough now. We can fold it over and burnish again. Fold it again and burnish. And we'll give that side just a second before we do the same thing over there. So for our inside pieces, I do actually need score tape for that. Let's see if I've got a big piece. I think we're just going to cut into a new piece. Okay, so those are both 3 inches, so let's cut this down. cut it before I attach it to the paper. I know Tammy does it after she attaches it. I'm always afraid I'm going to screw it up. And this way, if I screw it up, I'm at least not screwing it up and wasting as much of my tape. Okay, and again, there we go. So this is all going to fold up just like this. And it's going to slide into our box. All right. So let's go ahead and get the tape down on this. And this one must not be quite 3 inches because, yeah, my thing's on there crooked, but that's okay. That's not sharp. This one is, though. All right. A little messy, but that's okay. So we're going to pull our backing off. Normally I would go 5 inches with this piece, but because this is not a large folio, the spine that we're reinforcing is not that big, it's honestly not going to make much of a difference. Let's fold that over so it doesn't look so weird. So we're just going to line this up over this, wrench it down, and it goes on there just beautifully flat. So nice. And again, same thing on the other side. All right. Just line that up. And down it goes. And then we can very carefully bend that up and work that crease. And there you go. And there we go. There's our base. And everything lines up exactly the way we want it to. So next we will start working on the inside. Alright, so let's work on the inside of our album. We are going to start with the left-hand side. So on the left-hand side we're going to do a belly band with a waterfall on it. And for that belly band, I'm trying to remember which one I was going to use here. I'm not sure if we're going to tie it with that or with my ribbon here, because I need the ribbon one other place here shortly. Just got a mess going here. I apologize. I thought I had that stuff set out ready to go. Okay, so for the left-hand side, the belly band is going to measure 4 1/8 by 8 inches. With the 8-inch side on the top, we're going to score it 1/2 inch. Turn it. Score it 1/2 inch again. And the waterfall pages are going to be 4 1/8 by 4 5/8. I did 7. So with the 4 5/8 side on the top, we're going to score it 1/2 inch on each of these. Bring our book in. So what we want to do before we put that belly band down, we want to mat, the back side of the page. And so this back piece is just 1/8 of an inch smaller than this piece. So it's 4 7/8 by 7 inches. I bet my glue has dried. No, it's okay. So we're going to mat this first. That way our mat goes completely under our belly band, so that when you're sliding things in and out, it's not going to get caught, which quite honestly is the mistake I make all the time on my projects. I can't even tell you. Okay, there's my bone folder. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fold and burnish. Oops. And fold and burnish. And before we put this down, I'm actually going to go ahead and build the waterfall on it. And that is because when we do our ribbon, which is what we're going to use to hold this closed, I want to attach it underneath this piece on here. And we need to know for sure how much of it we're going to need. So that's why we're going to go ahead and do this first. So let me go ahead and fold and burnish all of these so that they're ready to go. Okay. All right, and as you know, I have to do mine upside down, or I can't get them to line up correctly. Don't ask me why, I have no idea. Much like I end up using my paper trimmer upside down. Same type of thing. Okay. And then you fold that first flap up. Normally I would use score tape on these. We're gluing today just because it does go a little bit faster. And my winter supply of art glitter is not as low as I thought it was. So, because as you all know, the art glitter glue cannot be shipped in cold weather, and it's cold here in Utah. So, let's get that off of there. Okay. Oops, that one's crooked. What did I just do here? It's straight on there, it's crooked folded back. You know what? It's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's handmade. And it's never going to be exactly right. That one's okay. And that one's still crooked when it's folded up. You know what? I'm not worried about it. I just think my cardstock must have slipped when I was scoring, which would not surprise me because I use waterfalls all the time. Literally, I think I've had 2 that came out perfectly straight, and I still don't know what I did to make that happen because none of mine come out perfectly straight. Oh, maybe we aren't going to do 6. Maybe we are only going to do 5, 6, or 7. We're only going to do 6 because that's going to be too long. All right. So, that is way crooked. Oh well, it's okay. Literally, this is going nowhere but for my own stuff. So, we need it to, what I'm going to do, so I'm going to just center this up here. I'm going to put just a tiny bit of glue there and glue that end down. I'm going to get glue on the back of my tab here on my belly band. We're going to center that up on top there. We're we're going to say we want it about to, I had scissors, didn't I? Right there. Okay, so we're going to make it about here. So that's what, about 12, 14 inches of ribbon. And then we're going to do the exact same thing on the bottom. Pull this through, pull this down so we can figure out where our center point is. And we're going to glue that down. Whoops. Let's glue it to the paper, not our finger. And then we'll flip this back up. Get our glue on our tab for our belly band. Push this all down flat. Hold it for just a second. And then cut our ribbon again. And we have our nice tie for our belly band. I do have everything cut and ready to go to mat this. We're going to mat just the front, not the back. I have inked all of these, all of my papers today. I have inked them with just black ink because that's what looks really nice with this paper. I kind of hesitated when I was getting ready to put this all together because as far as what colored cardstock to use for my base, and I decided I really kind of like the gray with it. And it's nice. I like it. Okay, so then I'm matting with both the that's what I'm looking for here. The 4x4 cut aparts and the solids that go with everything. And so that's just going to make it all kind of tie together. Okay, just about there. We'll use that last one on the very bottom. Okay, and that one's going to fit just about perfectly right there. And there we go. So we can just tie this to hold this closed. Unless you're like me and you're bow challenged, in which case you're going to struggle with it for a minute because that's just what happens. Literally, there's a reason I don't use a whole lot of ribbon. Okay, so for the center section, we're going to do a pocket and a couple of flaps up on top. So our pocket is going to be 6 inches by 4 inches. We're going to score this with the 6-inch side on top at 1/2 inch, turn it, 1/2 inch again, turn it one more time, 1/2 inch. We're then going to come in here and cut out those corners, or cut that across. To miter that corner. That way when we put it down, it's not going to catch on anything. Okay, so that's going to go down there. And then our 2 flaps that are going on top are both 5 inches by 4 inches. We're going to score it at 1/2 inch with the 4-inch side on top on each of these. So before we put the pocket down, we're going to put our mat down. And this one I didn't go all the way to the bottom of the page because that pocket's covering that up. Actually, I don't want to put that down yet. I need to get my flaps on there. Just kidding. Okay. So let's get our flaps scored. I cannot get a hold of anything today. My gosh. Okay, let's see our flaps on here. So, our first flap, I do need to turn this upside down so I can get it lined up all the way at the top. Okay, then our next flap is going to go right on top of the first one. So again, all the way at the top. Line them up exactly on top of each other. Then we're going to fold them back and put our mat down. Oh my gosh. Okay. There's our mat. Our pocket's going to come down here. And you want the bottom of this pocket to go all the way at the bottom of the album. Okay. There we go. So this should fold down like that. We're going to make, oops, just a minute for it to dry. We will make a tag that, or if you buy tags, I know I've got like graphic 45 tags would fit perfectly down in here. And that's what's going to hold those two flaps down. And then we're just going to mat this whole thing. So I think I'm matting my pocket, which this is actually just a tiny bit too big, so we'll fix that. And that is also a tiny bit too big. I think I was like not accounting for, yeah, that's exactly what it was. Okay. I was not counting for my 1/8 of an inch border when I cut these. So these are 3 3/8 by 4 7/8. I counted for it side by side, just not top to bottom. No big deal. Easily fixed. Let me just grab my ink. And we'll go ahead and just get the edges where we just had to trim that again. And then we will figure out what's going where. Okay, much better. All right, so I wanted this one down here for sure. I knew that. Okay, and let's figure out where we're putting. Okay, so I think we're going to put that one there. We're putting, let's put this woods one on top. And then we're going to put the red one on the back. Put our little bears. put our other just plain one. All right, so that one's done. We just need to tag for in there. I think I'm actually just going to grab one of these to stick in there temporarily. So tag will go in there just like that and hold that down. Okay, so for this next page, we're going to do a pocket on the inside, and then we've got some flaps. So our pocket on this one is just a tiny bit smaller. Let's grab the right thing here. So this pocket is going to be 5 3/4 by 3 1/2. And we're going to score it again, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. This is the full mat that's going to go behind it. We really could have cut that shorter, but I already had it cut for the full mat. And then this little one is going on the top there. I'm going to set those aside for right now. And then our pages, we have 3 pages that are 5 3/8 by 7. We're going to score each of those at 1/2 inch on that 5 3/8 side. Okay. And then the other mat is 5 1/2 by 7. And again, we're going to score this at 1/2 inch, and then we're going to score it at 5/8. So you've got that 1/8 of an inch gusset there. Okay. And then we're also going to use, actually, I'd probably get away with the small magnets because we're going to put it on top. One set of the small magnets, just to kind of keep this sitting flat. So we're going to set those aside for just a minute. And before we put down the pocket, we're going to put the flaps on either side because the pocket's going to sit kind of on top of those. So the larger flap with the gusset is going to go on so that it opens to the right. The other 3 pages are going to open to the left. So let's start with those. We're going to fold and burnish down each one of our score lines. And then let's go ahead and fold just the one score line for right now, for the tab that's actually going to get glued down, and we'll fold that other one in just a minute. It's easier to glue it down if we don't fold and burnish that second score line just yet. Okay, so I'm going to turn this. No, I'm not going to turn this. We're going to leave it this way. Okay, so on your flap, you want to make sure you're not on that hinge point. Okay. Once you get that one down, the other 3 are just going to go right on top of that one, just like we did with this flap. We're going to fold all 3 of these back. We're going to put our other flap down. I'm going to turn this one sideways just so I can get it lined up right up to the edge. got that one down. Now we can push it back to get that other score into that. Okay, it's going to close up like that. Let's just get our pocket trimmed here. And make sure it's going to fit before we glue it down. Make sure it's not going to be too wide, and that looks like it's about perfect. Let's check our mat that goes underneath it. It looks good. Okay, so, ooh, no, I know what I was doing. Okay, we're going to get that one down, and then we're going to get our pocket down. Okay. All right, give that just a minute. Glue on my hand there, obviously, because it got where I did not want it. Then we'll mat our pocket. I think my mat was too wide, but it's okay, we'll leave it. And so with that one, because of the wording on the back, some of it worked really well with this being a baby one. Some of it worked more with being like a masculine or like camping one. So when I cut this piece, I just kind of lined it up. I knew how tall I needed it to be. And I just kind of lined it up where I had words that I wanted to use on it, just so that the words that were in here made sense. I know what I'm trying to say. Okay, so I have the mats cut for this. I'm not going to put these on just yet because we're in the home stretch here. So these are all just bigger mats. You could do, you know, solids in here. I do have patterns for all of that. We could go back and add solid photo mats later if we wanted to. But we need to get our magnet on there before I completely forget about it. So let's get... Yeah, let's stab ourselves in the hand while we're at it too. Good Lord. Good thing this isn't sharp, huh? Okay, so I'm going to put it on this side. Fold it over and get it on that side. All right, so right here, we're just going to do some very simple stacked pockets. So these are 5 7/8 by 5 inches and 5 7/8 by 3 inches. We're just going to score like we always do, 1/2 inch on 3 sides. Trim those. I think I'm actually going to miter the top of these just a little bit, because I haven't been doing that lately and it's worked okay, but I think I'm going to do it in this case. Okay. So we're going to just, like we've done before, hold all your score lines, burnish them down. before we do that, we're going to put, how was I doing this? Okay, that was that one. Okay. And that's crooked. Let's move this over. There we go. Okay, get that down. We're going to put our pocket down. Make sure everything is folded in. Okay, get that one down. We're going to get, yeah, maybe I was supposed to do that the other way. Oh well, it's okay. All right, so that one's going to be 4 3/8. No big deal. Yeah, I think I was going to do that one and then this one, but that's okay. Map that one, and then let's get our other pocket down. So again, folding and burnishing. Okay, there's that one. Get our map down. All right, and there is our, there's our folio. So now we just need to decorate the outside and we're all set. I'll be right back. Okay, so I have gone ahead and covered the front, and what I've done is I've just added a very simple pocket. I cut down one of the 4x6 cut aparts to get this little bear cub saying, and I've just made a tag out of one of the solids that is just going to slip down in here, and you can either leave this other tag out of the ephemera kind of hanging out over the front, or you can tuck the whole thing down in there. But before we do that, we're going to actually put some ribbon around this. So what I've done, because of the way this opens, you of course don't want it to attach down on the front. We just need it to attach on the sides here. So what I've done is I found the midway point and I've just put 1/2 inch score tape around here. And what we're going to do, well, before we take the backing off, let's kind of get a feel for how long this needs to be. I'm thinking about there. Okay, so this is about, I would say 24 inches. We're going to turn this over and pull that backing off. And then I'm actually going to take my white and do the same thing with it. In fact, my white is not as long, so I'm just going to cut my white in half. And what we're going to do is we're going to get this about midpoint, and we're going to lay this very carefully on the center of that score tape and push it down. And then down around on the side where that score tape wraps around on the side. Okay, we're going to take our next piece, and because I've got these little ball looking things at the end, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to find about the midpoint. And we're going to put that on the other part of the score tape that hangs over the side here. I'm going to turn it all the way around, and I'm going to do the same thing again. So about midpoint. Push that down. Okay, so that actually looks really cute together like that. So what we're gonna do, I could go ahead and mat with some scraps, top and bottom like that. In fact, I might go ahead and do that. That's really pretty. I'll decide that here in a minute when I get back to decorating the rest of this. But now we can come over here and we can tie our little bow. And again, I'm bow challenged, so you've been warned. We've got just a cute little bow that goes on here. And it'd probably be easier to tie them separately, quite honestly, but you know, hindsight. So we've got that. So what I'm going to do now is just go in here and do some more decorating on the inside. This opens up. It does open up flat. I decided to go ahead and use those Graphic 45 tags because I know I had kind of temporarily tucked one in there to show you what we would end up with, but I really like how they look with this. So that's what I'm going to do. This is actually one of these longer tags that I just cut it down and then rounded the bottom. So I'm going to leave those tucked in there just like that. We need some little decoration here. So I'm going to go through and do some decorating, fixing some ribbon, and I'll be back. There we go. we're all done. Everything is decorated on the inside here. Ready to close it up here. Tie that little ribbon or little bow first. I cannot tie bows to save my life. Oh my gosh, seriously. There's a reason I don't do ribbon closures on my books very often. This is it. Because eventually I'm going to have to tie a bow and it's not going to end well for anybody involved. Alright, so I think I might need to glue this down just a tiny bit. And I might actually just... I don't know that I'm going to have these tie. I think I might have those just end kind of right in that general area. So yeah, let's do that actually, because they're not playing well when it comes to tying. And let's not make this any more frustrating than it needs to be. And they're sticking to my ridiculously dry hands because it's so stinking dry here in Utah. Alright, so all I'm going to do is come in here and get a little bit of glue and tack that down. It seemed to hold better on one side than the other, which is fine. Okay. Alright, there it is. I could run the rest of this around this little pocket. And I might go ahead and do that. That's actually kind of cute. Just to tie it in with the sides. I have to think about that. But our book is done. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you end up making this, by all means, please share it with me on Scrapping Under the Influence, and of course, always share it on Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations, and I'll see you next time. Thanks!